and welcome to the Last Monkey Music Show. Today we have on Violent Femmes Brian Ritchie. How you doing, man?
How you doing? Nice to see you.
I'm glad I could finally catch up with you. You've been a busy man. You just got done touring, right?
As Sunnyland Slim used to say, the devil's a busy man. We did 15,000 miles in the tour bus, and that was too much. It was a little bit too much driving, but we did it. And 30 dates, and nobody got COVID. So that was pretty remarkable. Also, with me coming from Australia and Blaze, the sax player. So we were coming from Australia, where especially in Tasmania, where we live, there's no COVID. And so it was interesting to go into the
belly of the beast,
risky area of the United States and survive it with no real complications.
A bus with anybody, it's a long time, man.
Yeah, it was like some sort of an initiation or something, but I don't know what we're being initiated into.
The touring, though, how the shows with COVID? I really haven't talked to a lot of people who have done any touring with COVID right now.
Pretty much normal. It's weird to see people wearing masks, but it's good. They're taking care of themselves. There's a feeling of relief, I guess, people getting live music again. And for us to play it was similar, although for me, it was nothing new because I've been playing all along down here in Australia.
Online, you've been doing like a new show.
I did a lot of online. I did an everyday concert for about 525 days. And it was kind of
that's insane.
Protest kind of, also example to younger musicians or uninspired musicians, like, you can do this. Just because we have restrictions doesn't mean our creativity has to stop. So that was part of it. But then I stopped that when I got to the States, because it was what's to protest anymore. Now I'm back into the world.
Right. I actually just seen it. I'm joking. It was Room 23.
That was at the beginning of lockdown, and that was my also example to, I guess, young musicians. Like, you don't need a band. You can make music by yourself. Use your creativity. Yeah.
That was insane. Like, how many instruments you played? You almost like a shell or a conch. You're playing drums at the same time, like a little rhythm and your gong and everything going on there. It was insane. I had to watch it like 3 times. I'm like, dude's insane.
Well, it was live too. There was
right.
No electronics. It was no drum machine. It was just me playing a lot of different instruments. And what I was thinking in my mind was, well, first of all, try to make as much sound as possible at the same time by myself. But sometimes I was splitting up the parts across time, like I was playing one part first, and then I would play the other part, where normally in a band, you'd have everybody playing those parts at the same time. So there's just a different way of constructing music.
I think you've always had a different way of constructing music than the normal main. You were one of the first players in Violent Femmes in the 80s, when I first heard the first album, that had a bass that was playing like lead. That was like probably one of the first times, and that was fantastic. That was like its own instrument. Usually bass was always in a pocket, or, a good solid thing, but that had a lot of lead.
Well, my philosophy about bass is that a good bass player listens to everybody else and then does what's required. So if you're playing in a blues band, you might just be playing doom, 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 something very simple like that. But in the Femmes, because Victor's drumming was very sparse and Gordon was like playing an acoustic guitar half the time and not trying to really dominate the sound with the guitar, that left a lot of space for me. I used it. We consider that we play rock music, or even that we play punk rock.
Yeah.
But we don't consider ourselves a punk rock band. We consider ourselves a jazz and folk kind of roots band.
Yep.
And that's why we also record live usually. Mm-hmm. And there's improvising, as you said, and we don't use a set list live. So
I love that. How do you do that? How do you like put that? Because I know you're the one who said you do it right every night. You just
Yeah,
You
I
throw it
just
out
tell
there.
the other guys what song's next. Although on this tour, it was kind of funny because Gordon was afraid that if I would tell him the name of the song, that I would be spraying like a fire hose of COVID at him, just in case I got COVID in the lobby of the hotel or something. So instead, I went to the microphone. I had another microphone near my amp, and he didn't want me to tell the names of the songs. So I made like a Chinese menu with all the songs, and then I would go to the other microphone and say, "Number 17." It
That is
was
hilarious.
it was bizarre, but I was still constructing the set in real time.
But you do have some old standards you have to do, right? So you kind of
Yeah.
how do you manipulate that so you make sure you don't forget? Also, you're like, oh, I got so carried up. You got some new albums out. You got some new good stuff out. I mean, step back for a second. You guys have always put out really good albums. Just because you had one album that everyone talks about, every album of yours has consistently. I love them. They've always gotten not even better, but always a new flavor, and it always is strong. But as an artist, everyone wants to hear that it's their glory years. A lot of people, that was their years. That first album, it was a one thing for them, and they get old and they remember that album. But you have a whole catalog of really great music that you have to divvy up.
Yeah, we like playing the songs from the first album and also from Hallowed Ground. We really like that material ourselves, so we don't have no problem playing it.
Well, I mean, a problem. I just mean because you have other stuff you want to, because as an artist, you probably have a lot of material to choose.
Well, we do, and we basically play something from every album every night. So that's it's a challenge, but we can do it.
You've done well. You do it well. I like the fact you guys are still doing new music too. It's cool. What's interesting is how do you guys write songs? Is it because I know your bass plays a lot of lead, but it doesn't look like you're writing a lot of the music with Gordon, right? Because I know you have a lot of solo stuff. So I'm kind of understanding not too much the dynamic of you two. I'm not trying to get there, but like your songwriting feels like you have so much music just pouring out of you, and your bass plays such a prominent part in also the Femmes music. But I don't see I don't a lot of credit for a lot of the songs. So I don't know if it's kind of how it's written.
Well, Gordon comes with a basic song structure and basic song. Mm-hmm. And then we listen to it and almost immediately start playing whatever we feel like. So at that point, it becomes collaborative. Mm-hmm. So really, if you listen to the recording and just if you want to focus on the drums, that's what, John Sparrow is our drummer now. So that's what John wanted to play. I might give him a few pointers once in a while, and then what I want to play, I play. What Gordon wants to do, he does. So other than, sometimes we might say, okay, let's do 2 choruses instead of 1, or, here's where the solo goes. It's all pretty straightforward.
When you write stuff, because you have a lot of solo albums out, and you've worked with some other bands, which is pretty also. Recently, it looks like you haven't released anything, but I'm sure you're still making music. How are you still gonna?
Well, I do a lot of gigs. It is a little bit. Well, it's a Pyrrhic victory to release an album nowadays because you can't sell them. Nobody pays for them.
Right.
There's no point in pressing up hundreds of thousands of copies of something that's not going to sell, and so that takes a little bit of the thrill out of it. So I just release stuff online, or I just put stuff out when I want to, or like I did with my Corona concert series. To me, that was more interesting than putting out a recording because it was live and it was in real time. Shakuhachi Japanese bamboo flute.
How did you get into that? It's beautiful. I watched you play it too.
It's a Buddhist instrument, and I was doing like sitting meditation, zazen, and then I read in the New York Times, oh, check out this meditation flute at the flute convention in Times Square. So I went to Times Square, and they had a flute convention of flutes from all over the world, and I tried it out and got into it. And my teacher actually gave me a business card and said, hey, give me a call if you want to learn how to play that. So I did. And then that was about 25 years ago. And I've been playing it since then.
And you've actually been well, as a teacher, like is it a license? Like, was it? Can you earn the title of teacher?
Yeah, it's they call you a shihan, which means master, but it doesn't. Master is a little bit of a pretentious term, but it does mean teacher basically. And yeah, so you have to get a license to do that. It's not like in Western music where you have to keep one lesson ahead of your pupils. You know, we actually have to know something before we can teach it. Yeah, I still teach it um, here in Tasmania, face to face with some students.
No COVID. That's incredible.
Well, it's an island, so they kept it out, but it'll be coming soon because we're opening the borders on December 15th. So after that, it'll be here, but hopefully it won't proliferate as much as it did in Europe or the States.
You talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'm the music curator at MONA, which is Museum of Old and New Art in Tasmania. And that means we do hundreds of musical performances a year on site at the museum. And I also, curate a music festival, which happens every January called Mona Foma. It's been going on for 15 years now. So in January will be the 14th edition of the festival. And it regularly wins the Best Music Festival in Australia award. And I won't disagree with that assessment. Well, over the years, we've had people like Nick Cave, John Cale, Dresden Dolls.
Well, you had the drummer for a while.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we have a mixture of about in a good year, it's 1/3 international artists, 1/3 Australian, and 1/3 Tasmanian. But obviously, we're focusing more on local artists now because we can't get people into the country.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think the other question I actually had one for you. So the United States has its own view on music and like skills and what's popular. It seems like it's very black and white. When other bands that tour like Europe and other places, how has the reception been for other albums of yours? And like, do you have other strongholds in other parts of the world? Like America's hot and cold at times. And a lot of the bands can just tour everywhere, but America, because it depends what the flavor is. And it's America. I live here, but you follow what I'm saying? It's the temperature of music that day.
Well, Australia is our biggest market outside of the United States, and that's like so obvious that's one of the reasons why I even live here. Europe, we have not concentrated on it lately because, we've been quite successful there over the years, but we just haven't been there recently. So hopefully that'll be something that'll be coming back. We sold out 10,000 seat arenas in South Africa. We haven't been to South America. We haven't been much to Asia, just a little bit. So there's, even after 40 years of the band, we still have some places that we could probably stand to go to.
I would think that would be the more fun part than being in a bus for 15,000 miles. Go places you go like a vacation, kind of plan it like a vacation and play a couple gigs and have a few days. And where the culture.
Hopefully we'll have that possibility soon.
So for people who don't know, so the concert is in January, right? You're saying?
Yeah, festival. Yeah.
Sorry. Is there?
And the Femmes will be touring next year. We'll be touring next year. For the Mona website, it's www.mofo.net.au.
Excellent. All right, man. Brian, thank you for being on the show and giving some time.
Thanks, Sean. All right, great.
Okay, thank you. Bye.